Running a little late.
That's okay.
Okay, so everybody got the documents downloaded?
Yeah.
Looked at it.
Anybody have any questions on the document?
Yeah, you used the word sanction, and I saw what it means. I could reread the definition, but you used that for a particular reason.
Yeah, we have the authority to sanction them.
Yeah.
I have a question, and actually in the first sentence, that we are the grantee of a bankrupt letters patent issued by a government grant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, see, this is a government grant, okay?
This is the
They took
original
all the
700?
gold and silver. The bankrupt corporation took all the gold and silver away from the people.
Yeah.
Okay, and bankrupt. They had to give something in return. So they gave us a certificate of live birth with so much value to it, credit.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they granted that. It didn't come from the nation. This isn't accessing the Treasury, the National Treasury.
Interesting.
Okay, this was what gold and silver they took. They had to give us something back, and it was for the corporate, the second United States of America.
Yes.
Okay, the copyrighted 1871. And the 1871 United States was copyrighted, and all the states of are additions to that copyright. Each state of whatever does not have their own individual copyright.
Right, they're a franchise.
No, they're basically all under this main one.
Okay.
Okay? Where the original Constitution, they were all individual states.
They
Okay?
reversed it. So
So
they reversed
basically,
it.
they combined them into one entity under the corporate United States. Okay, the all capital, the 1871 United States.
Okay.
And see, this is setting the stage for a lot of the stuff that's taken place. It doesn't all happen overnight. You have to sort of look at the history, and that's why history is very big, that people never look at history and study it to see what's really going on. Okay? They had to get certain things in place before they could pull the plug. In the early 1900s, they were starting to bring communism into play. Well, they had the red communism, and communism basically was set up out of New York. Okay? The Bolsheviks and everything were all instigated out of New York, setting up Russia to go over there and take out because Russia was one of the biggest supporters of America early on.
Yes.
Okay? And basically they brought in and took out the Tsar in the process because they wanted revenge for, the bankers did, for Russia supporting us against the bankers early on.
And Russia was our only ally in the Civil War and prevented France and Britain from attacking.
Yes, they kept them at bay. Okay? So, France initially was one of our friends, but then basically they got taken over by, after their revolution, the bankers and everything got back into power over there, and it took a turnabout after Napoleon and everything got thrown out. So there's a lot of history that, for the main part, we just have to concentrate on these certificates of live birth. They were a letters patent, okay, but it's a government letters patent. Now, when we didn't claim it, okay, they tried to make it look like a royal patent, giving it to us about our 1-year anniversary. Okay, but in this country, we didn't have to wait for that royal patent, because when we were recorded into the book of life at the county records, that is our royal patent right then and there.
Okay.
Because it's book and page number that are the key component. You're marked now, the sovereign of this country is the land. And basically, when we got attached to the land by the county record, land records, we became the sovereignty of the sovereign. And most all the state constitutions have that documented, that we are the sovereignty of the land. We, the people, saw the sovereignty of the state of whatever. You can read the preambles of your state constitutions, and you'll see, most all the states have that in there. And then the original states made up the corporate United States. So they had jurisdictional authority over the United States. The United States, the original United States Corporation, was only supposed to have jurisdiction over international and specific certain things to help protect, like the mail and certain things like that. They weren't, and basically they're not a charitable, non-profit organization. They were a profit organization from the get-go. A non-profit organization has to be a charitable organization, and that means they do not have any offices for profit in them. If they have an office of profit in them, then basically they're a profit organization, because they have to have a profit to pay the salary for that office. So most all of these non-profit organizations are total frauds. They really don't have charity. Charity is supposed to be to where you go in and you give your time and effort to them. You may get some compensation, but you don't get a salary. Okay, you can read the definitions about that. Okay, office of profit. You can find those definitions in some of the dictionaries. Tried to go over those before. So, the United States, all capital, basically is the bankrupt. They went bankrupt in 1933. They took the gold and silver. They had to give us something in return. So, in most cases, they put it somewhere in the neighborhood of about 600. Initially, I think it's 640, and from one of the later reports, it was over $1 million in the 1960s that they were putting on deposit or credits to that certificate of live birth initially. Now, that has been used as collateral for the bankrupts, since we didn't pick it up, for the bankrupt United States. And that was the bailment. It's a bailment in the process. We're just like a bail bondsman, okay? We bonded them, bailed them out, really. So we're a bail bondsman in a way. we put a bail up for them. Now, that bail was only supposed to be utilized for 21 years. And that was what the original intent was, that we were supposed to be able to come in and claim it. Well, you can come in and claim your bail anytime. Okay? It's not like a trust, okay, to where you had to wait 21 years. So there's a difference between a trust and a bailment. Basically, they were put in there as a bailment for hire. Yeah, we supported the corporation in their bankruptcy, and then they turned around and made us criminals in the process. Because if you read the definition about hire and retain, you'll see right there, that's how they made us criminals, enemies of the state. Okay? Never could figure out how we became enemies of the state. Well, it's because we, as the bailors, we basically put a bailment in there for hire, and then the bailees are classified as bailees for hire, and they went out and started utilizing our assets in a foreign monetary system, which is detrimental to the United States of America. Okay, it's outside the boundaries of the United States of America. It's an internal system.
So
it's a usury system, and basically that is totally against the Constitution. So that is outside the boundaries of just exchangement of the Constitution. So that's what made us an enemy or a criminal, okay? Now, they've taken these bailments, and the initial one that they set up as a sub-bailment was the Social Security. So they made that a sub-bailment to the original bailment in the process. If you watch the movie Oz the Great and Powerful, there was two bad witches in the movie. But the younger bad witch basically gave the appearance of being a good witch initially, and then she bit into the apple and turned real wicked. And that is the Social Security sub-bailment. So there's credits in that one too, okay? It's a sub-bailment that's accumulated. Now, both of these accounts, they're being utilized by the corporation. The corporation out here is going and obtaining a bunch of illicit, illegal, contraband, you name it, in the system. They've got to hide it somewhere. Well, where do they hide it? They hide it in our accounts. Okay? That's why some of these people have gotten $3 billion or whatever when they cashed out of their account. Now, that is basically what I addressed in this letter or in this document that I'm sending into the bankruptcy court, clerk of the court, is that they've obtained illicit, and I'm going to turn this over to the FBI, CID, Treasury inspectors, and postal inspectors for anything that is questionable. They can go out then and prosecute any of the ins and outs in those commercial transactions into and out of those bailment accounts if they want to. I'll give them the option. Okay? Mm-hmm. But all at my account be exposed to it And basically, I don't know what they've got me classified. Several people have gone into the IRS and obtained their master file and found out that they're a drug dealer or whatever, a gun runner, something that's illicit. Well, if you're already made a criminal in the bail and retain scenario, hell, we'll just go ahead and put some more items over to you and sort of keep the bailee for hire out of hot water. All these court actions that are going on, putting people in prison, the bonds that they're writing against them, the prison system is a total fraud. It's illegal. There was never supposed to be a debtor's prison in this country. So what is going on here? People don't have enough sense to stand up to them and say, hey, what the shit's going on? I really don't owe this debt. They tried to say that, but they've gone about it in the wrong way. They've argued the wrong laws. You're arguing the codes. You've got to stand by the Constitution. Okay? The Constitution doesn't have any of those codes in it. But you go in there and try and associate yourself with the codes, now you're into their system. Just like using all the IRS forms and everything else that I've been trying to work and get away from all forms. Initially, the other night before I started this, I was looking at going in and doing a bankruptcy against our all-capital name person. Well, we sort of done something along that lines before, but we didn't address it as a bailment. And then I got to thinking, I said, wait a minute. If it's just a damn bailment, you go down here and basically you go and you have to get a bail bondsman to put a bail up for you at the county clerk of the court's office. It's not a bankruptcy bond, it's a bail bond. So I said, well, basically then we're putting our bailments, they're already there. We just have to come in and claim our bailments back away from the clerk of the court. That certificate of live birth, a DD-214, basically they are bailment receipts. All we have to do is endorse them over to the clerk of the court and claim our bailment back. That basically all the usages of that have been fulfilled on our behalf. And basically the bailor can claim those back at any time. Even if the guy's still out there, you pull the bail off the books at the courthouse, the sheriff's going to go out and arrest the guy if he's out on bail, because he doesn't have any bail on the books to keep him out of jail. So you've got to look at it from that standpoint. I mean, now it's so damn simple, it's ridiculous. But the thing is, they've been utilizing all the oil profits that have been out here. See, when an oil company drills for oil, the company can only make 10% profit over and above their operating expenses. The other 90% belongs to the country. But this corporate United States has been running the show. They've been taking the 90% profits, and then they've been utilizing them. But to fully utilize them, and hide them, they've been putting them in our accounts.
Mm.
They haven't been going into the National Treasury to where they were supposed to be going. Yeah, the owner of the land would get, like, say, a certain percentage, but then the oil company gets 10%, and then the rest would go into the coffers of the country because the oil reserve is underground, and basically it is supporting that which is above the ground. That's why we are the sovereignty, and the sovereign is underneath us. When we were born, we abandoned our birth sac. That was our support while we were in the hopper. So now when we abandoned that support, we had to be given another support in return. And this is the oldest law on the books. Adam, I give you dominion over the land. Right at the very beginning in Genesis. And then the second oldest is basically the military bounty. Now, the military bounty, they took that away from the people and put it under the jurisdictional control of the corporate United States. So they had to give the military people something in return. Back in the 1800s, late 1800s, they didn't get a DD-214. The DD-214 is a bailment receipt. It's a honorable discharge. Honorable, credible is honorable, credible discharge. Credits of discharge. You've got so many credits sitting there in that discharge. I've got 2 of them. So I've got 2 items there. One of the other guys I was talking to earlier today, he's got 4 of them. Or, let me see, he's got 3 of them, I think he said. He didn't get the 4th one. They put 15 years in. So basically, honorable discharge normally is a 4-year item, but normally your first one's after 2 years. Up 2 years to 4 years, okay, for your first one. And see, that was supposed to be your military bounty. And see, that's where now this corporate government has laid claim to all the public lands out here. That's why they've been able to basically bond like some of these national parks with overseas countries. People just don't look at all the things out here, and they sit there and bitch and complain, and they never go and find out why things are the way they are. Better just to sit back and bitch and basically never investigate or try and think. Thinking is pretty hard sometimes. Now, the whole thing is they want you to keep your bailment in place and then die. Your bailment then goes under your death certificate. It can stay there for 10 years. At the end of 10 years, it is totally abandoned because the relatives didn't come in and pick it up from there. The relatives have a 10-year grace period to pick up the other party's bailment out there. This governmental letters patent. Okay? And basically it continues to be utilized as collateral, and they're continually putting more funds into it. But now when it becomes abandoned, these guys come in and pick it up, and it's been cleaned up. Okay? It's money laundering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? A lot of cases, no taxes or anything on salvage. Okay? So, you need to sort of think about some of these things. And basically, in most cases, it's a very select few that are out here. The evil witch, basically, was in the movie, is the Secretary of the State.
Well, turn it off, baby. It makes sound.
And who was the previous Secretary of State?
Hillary
Clinton.
Hillary.
Talk about a witch and a half. Why did she want Secretary of State? Because as Secretary of State, she could come in and basically gain access to all of those death certificates, knowing when they were going to be available, and then they could turn around, the Bushes and the Clintons and all these corrupt, evil shitheads out here, they were putting claims in against all those death certificates that basically had not been picked up by the people after 10 years of laying there in mourning.
Wow.
Yeah. You got to look at how evil this system is, okay? And basically that Oz, the Great and Powerful, was a replay of The Wizard of Oz, but it was a more modern version to bring out more highlights in the process. Now, the whole thing that I really started down this road was the night before when I was going over the movie Matrix. Okay? Neil was initially in a pod, and he was plugged into it. Okay, so he had all these feeding tubes plugged into him. But the feeding tubes were not feeding him. They were feeding the corporation, the Matrix. The Matrix was living off of the living person.
Yeah.
And that's what they've got us under right now with all these certificates. We are feeding them. They're the patient, and we're the doctor. Okay? We're giving the insulin and everything else to them to keep them alive. But we can pull the plug on them. Let them die. We don't need them. Really. Okay? It's about time we played Dr. Kevorkian and pulled the plug on them. And see, he was in the movie. He had all his plugs. He got flushed out of the pod. They picked him up, and then basically he had the big plug in the back of his head and all the little plugs up and down his legs and arms. Those all got surgically removed. Okay, except for the big plug. To go into the Matrix, he had to still plug in to the system, okay, and that is your certificate of live birth. So he was going in. But then later on, he was going into the Matrix unplugged. So he was acting like one of these patriots out here, running around in the system, causing havoc. Unplugged. Then later on in the last one, okay, and see, Mr. Smith was out here, and that was the Social Security account, is the first Mr. Smith. Just like the younger witch in the evil witch in the movie Oz and the Great Powerful. That's the Social Security. The Social Security is a sub-bailment to the original one. But then it creates sub-bailments unto itself in the form of the VA. Okay, you go into the VA system and basically they use your Social Security number. You go and get a driver's license. You need to have a Social Security number. You do a certificate of title to the vehicle, Social Security number. All these different things, you need to have a Social Security number or basically some form of attachment back to the bailment that originally or initially goes back to the original bailment, the certificate of live birth. So you're out here creating all these, your checking account, savings account, your credit cards, they're all attached to the Social Security. So you're creating a bunch of Mr. Smiths all over the place. And that's what was getting out of control in the Matrix. All these Mr. Smiths were running amok. And that's what's going on in this country right now. We've got all these Mr. Smiths under your name running amok out here. And nobody knows how to bring them down. Well, Neil, at the very end, had to plug in all the little plugs attached to him, but he didn't have any the entry points, but they still plugged into him. And then the master, or the main one, in the back of the neck, plugged back into him. And he went into the Matrix and destroyed Mr. Smith from internally. And that's what we're doing when we go in to pull out this bailment with the bankruptcy clerk of the court. The bankruptcy side of the court system is the commercial court system. And this is the commercial communism system out here. UCC, Universal Commercial Communism. No shit.
Oh.
Okay? The other titles are all fraud. They're all deception. It is totally universal commercial communism. It's not just. It's a communal system basically for the main benefit of the people that are in control. There is no charity or justice in this system. And that's the system we have to come out. That's the Jezebel system that was created under Jeremiah, I think, back in after Moses left the scene. That was the Babylonian system. The Greeks fell into that system. The Romans fell into that system. They initially started out as a republic. And then after they killed Caesar, they went over to this system. Brutus and his banking cohorts. So, history repeats itself over and over again, okay? Cain killed Abel. Yeah, Cain killed Abel. His Mr. Smith that was in the system back in his time, getting into the commercial banking system. None of this stuff is new. It's been played out numerous times, and this isn't the first cycle that this has been played out in. We're in the second Genesis. The first Genesis was with 50,000 years ago before they collapsed the dome of water around this planet, with the nuclear war that was between Oceania or Numeria and Atlantis. The good and the evils. But that's a whole nother story that basically is totally missing from the Bible in its play out. But it's in the record books and by word of mouth and by shamans and everything else from South America and Africa. And even some of the Norwegian writings that they have or stories that they have. But what we're dealing here right now is, and see, your royal letters patent, like I said, is your land. That it comes from a sovereign. And that was given to you that you had access to the national treasure by birth, by being born to the land. The land had to support you in return, not the government. Okay? That's a royal letters patent. And that is, you have unlimited access to the national treasure, that you have to use that access in honor. Okay? You can't go in and take it all. Okay? But these others, these governmental letters patent, and see, if you've got an unlimited account at the National Treasure, you don't have any claim to need to go after your parents' account there. Because what would you gain by having another unlimited account? Nothing. It's the ones that are held at the government land patents or letters patent, okay, that have a fixed value to them. Okay? That is what you need to claim. And you need to claim it before the 10 years is up on their death. Because after that is probably totally lost in the process. So, that's where we're at. Now, you read these documents, you'll see what I'm talking about. I gave you the template to put on the back of your certificate of live birth as the receipt statement for your bailment receipt, for your endorsement. And then cover letter to go along with it. Send them in by certified mail. But if you walk them in, okay, take the certified mail number off. You walk it in, get it recorded, and then get a copy of the recorded documents that you just gave to them. Now, it is the duty, automatic duty of that clerk of the court to issue the writ of replevin to the U.S. Marshals to go and seize that property, that bailment property, to return it to you. They don't have to take this to a court. It's by your will, and the court cannot override that will. Non-intervention will. I am by my free non-intervention will. I don't know whether I had that in the copy I sent to you or not. Second paragraph, second line.
Yes, you have it.
Okay. Non-intervention means that basically the court cannot intervene against that will. That's why I stuck that in there. This is not a court, a judgment, and that's why the bankruptcy judge down in South Carolina told these couple guys down there, you can do this yourself.
Wow.
You don't have to go into court to claim your bailment back. It's out there in the clerk's office. You go talk to the clerk. I don't want to see you in here again. Okay, so basically that should pretty much, when you read through it, see it, and basically then you should be able to get that thing in there in the court, in the mail or into the court, walk it in tomorrow.
So we're going to use this one instead of the prior one, right? Because this one's better.
This one is for the prior one that I was trying to do. I was trying to put it into the federal court system. And I was thinking that it was the royal patent, was the certificate of live birth. It's not. So the previous stuff that I had there is all garbage. It was a good study tool,
Right.
precursor to basically get into this thing, okay?
Yeah. And perfect it.
Yes. And to understand more and more about it.
Right. No, I understand. It evolved. It evolved into a clearer, more powerful.
Yes, that's why it took 3 movies there for Neil to come out of the system. Because he had to keep trying.
Yeah,
He knew there was something wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. And it wasn't until at the very end that he fully became confident that he knew what he was doing to go in and bring Mr. Smith down. Yeah, he fought with him a lot through the movies, but basically, that was it. He was fighting with him. And that's the way most all these patriots out there, they've been fighting. They never understood what they were fighting for, though. Or who they were fighting. And in a lot of cases, they were fighting themselves. Because it's our bailment that we're fighting against. Our bailees for hire, we're fighting against them. And all we have to do as the bailor is to come in and order the bailees for hire. We're ordering the release of the funds from the bailment to settle this item. And that's what I said to Tom this afternoon. Okay? Was basically you have a bill or something like that, you turn around and you send this item in against one of those sub-accounts, sub-bailment accounts, to settle like a hospital bill. We put the orders into the bailees, the county prosecutor. In any court action there, it's an arbitration. It's a tennis match. That person that's sitting up there on the high chair, okay, that they call the bench, that's a high chair. And at a tennis match, you have a judge or a referee sitting in a high chair to see the playing field. to see that everybody is keeping in bounds and everything and observing things properly. He's got some line judges, sort of like he might have a bailiff or two running around to make sure everybody stays in bounds and doesn't step out. But it's just a damn tennis court. And the ball gets passed back and forth, volleyed back and forth between the bailee and the bailor. And it's all, then the ball is the bailment. You can bring this to a close right off the bat. And see, like in your case, Steve, when they confiscated that truck, that was basically setting up another sub-bailment account.
Yeah.
And basically, there again, from that item, the court is going to make a profit off of the thing in this commercial court system. And also, the towing company is going to get some profit off of it. But it's under bailment right now.
Yeah.
You've got to go in and claim that bailment back. You take your traffic tickets, and basically there should be a bond on there, an appearance bond. In most traffic tickets, they have an appearance bond that is more than what the traffic tickets themselves are. That is the bailment. So you come in and claim the bailment, and I was trying to do that, but I didn't address it as bailment. And I didn't sign it over to the clerk of the court to claim that as bailment. And they weren't going to tell me that that was a bailment. So I never got it back. But now I see what the hell is going on, and basically I think you've got 3 years to go after those. But in statutes of limitation upon fraud, you can try that one and see basically if you want to. But the appearance bond is always more than a traffic ticket charges. So you claim the bailment, then out of the bailment you pay the ticket charges, and you're always going to have money in your back pocket. Like that one guy said, I like to get traffic tickets because I always walk out of there with money in my back pocket. Well, how was he doing it? He never told us that it was a bailment, and all he had to do was endorse it over and get the bail back from the clerk of the court. We settled the matter, so now the case no longer needs to have the bail. But everybody's arguing it and leaving the bail sit out there. Unless you take the bailment away from these guys, unplug from them, they're still going to be siphoning and using those bailments, and they're going to be using them for the demise of the whole country. They're in a system right now that is totally out of control. And then see, like in the one letter I had there about turning this over to the FBI, CID, and the postal inspectors, if they want to prosecute it, okay, and you basically were in the process, you gave them the authorization to, as the bailor, in the prosecution of that, you are now a prosecutor in the process. You would get 50% of all gains or all recoveries in that process. But it really doesn't make any difference because basically all this stuff is going to go back into the National Treasury anyway. The stuff that's recovered by the FBI and the Treasury inspectors and the CID and the Post Office, it's going into the National Treasury. And basically, if you come in and put your claim in and put it on deposit with the de jure temple, okay, clerk of the court, then you can access, you have unlimited access to that national treasure. First National Treasure. How much did they get? They were offered 10% of the find. But they settled for 1%. And then basically, what's his name was complaining about, well, he only got 1/2 of 1%. You don't need all the damn thing, okay? People out here are so damn greedy, and basically that's all I think about. Money, money, money in that regards. I just want access to what is lawfully my inheritance. And I want de jure, and I want to close down this fraudulent. I want to unplug. I'm going to be Dr. Kevorkian and kill my patient.
Yeah.
That's why I like it the way that you're doing it, because we have to study this. And those people who aren't like serious, you know, they won't make it through. And those perhaps are your greedy people who just want things handed to them. You got to work for this stuff. You know, even though it's your inheritance, you got to really earn it. You got to go get what's yours. And if you're not confident enough to handle your business, then you won't get it.
Now, it's you've got to be able to know what you're doing, and then, because once you know this, then you'll know how to stay out of that situation down the road. But if you don't really fully understand it, they're going to trick you right back into the system again. It's like the deal with all the people that win the lottery, okay? Yeah, I win the lottery, boy, I'm going to be home free. Well, in a lot of cases, those people that won the big lotteries, they're dead broke at the end of 3 years. The charitable organizations and that claim to be non-profit, they're really for profit. And basically the Washington area, Maryland, Virginia, Washington area, has more damn non-profit organizations operating in that damn area than you can shake a stick at. They're all boilerplated. Sitting out there fleecing the damn people out of funds, claiming to be a charitable organization, and then giving a penny out of $1 as a charitable item to help some kid or something. The other 99% is going to the administration people. Like Red Cross. I mean, the salary that those people get in that damn office is ridiculous. The legislatures and the congressmen, they were not to be receiving a salary. Okay? That was not to be an office of profit. But now it is an office of profit. Totally in violation of the Constitution. See, that wasn't supposed to be an office, being a legislator or a senator. It's clearly stated that way. But they're getting a salary. And then they're getting a retirement on top of that. And then they're getting all these extra add-on compensations in the damn thing. They build up an office staff that in some cases, the office personnel are turning around and kicking back some of the shit back to the senator or the congressman. No, that was supposed to be basically a charitable position of going in there. And it wasn't supposed to be a lifetime position either. And that's why it says you can't be a habitant and run for that office. The same thing as the president.
You said that wrong. You have to be an inhabitant.
No.
No?
You can't run for office if you are an inhabitant.
Oh, okay.
An inhabitant is a household member.
Okay.
That means you can't be in office and run for the office at the same time.
Right, right. I thought habitant was the nation, not the office.
No, basically you got to look at what the real word says and how it was utilized in the Constitution and why they used that in there. See, people don't understand the meanings of the words, thinking he had to be a habitant of the country before he could be in that office. That's not what it's saying. It means you can't be in that habitant office and run for that office at the same time. In other words, hey, he had to sit out one term, then you could run again for that office.
Yeah.
So all these people like Ron Paul, a real constitutionalist, he don't know shit about the damn Constitution. Whenever any modern day Congress or senator or anything opens their mouth, you can count on it that it's a fucking lie. Because they couldn't tell the truth if their heart depended upon it. In some cases, they're worse than the damn bankers out here. That's why they call them politicians. So when you start seeing all this stuff and start putting the pieces together, then you can start understanding a lot of this stuff to see how, and then when you understand the Bible, that the Bible is just a book of banking laws. Just and unjust banking laws. And everything out here is about banking and about the money exchangement, commerce, whether you're in commercial debt commerce or whether you're in just commerce.
We never thought that, we were never really taught to think that way. That's
right.
Much trivium, you know.
And I mean, basically, everybody out here ought to be more than happy to get their initial deposit, bailment, back, close that account down, and then turn around and go over to the other side of the aisle and be able to have access to the national treasury. And say the initial deposit is only $600,000. I'm sure that basically everybody out here would be happy to have that, and then turn around and go over to the other side of the aisle, and if they needed to, get $1 billion or $1 million or something out to go and buy a farm or something like that, that close the other thing down and have the de jure enforcement people go out and bring in and prosecute these fraudulent judges and stuff like that that have caused harm in the process. Then pull the plug, take all the funds out. Say it's a $3 billion account, really, and you're only going to get $600,000 out of it. It's still going to go back into the Treasury, the national Treasury. And then you go and close down grandma and grandpa's if they're died within the last 10 years, and mom and pa or whatever, brother and sister, get their accounts out. Now you're bringing down the national debt, because the national debt is over on the commercial side of the aisle that's out here. And it's debts that are owed, debt credits that are owed to us. But it's on their side of the aisle. It's classified as a debt, national debt, where on the other side, it's classified as the national treasury. It's just which side of the looking glass are you on? Okay, I hope that made a little sense. Now I'll open it up, and anybody's got a question or anything like that, either on the documents that I had Tom post last night, or this Baylor's sanctioned bailment Replevin order, and Replevin at the very top was misspelled. I had the second E and I switched around. I had it right in the body of the thing, but wrong up there.
Right.
And then this is a real action in admiralty. You can look up what real action means.
Patrick, does a certificate of live birth have to be authenticated?
No. It has to be certified under the state seal and the registrar's seal.
Okay, because I have a certificate of live birth for my son. It came from the county.
And it's probably coming under a seal on that.
Yeah.
Does it have raised seals down to the very bottom? You run your finger across it. It should have, under the seal, it should have, and see, all those seals are basically already printed on that paper. Okay, that is a bonded paper that they use one sheet at a time. And those are already pre-printed, except for the data that goes in on those county records.
Yeah,
even
it just has the county
even at the
seal.
state level, basically the paper already has the governor's seal, the state seal, and the registrar's seal already on them.
Yes.
Yeah, they just pull out a sheet, the next sequence numbered sheet, and stick it in the machine, and then print the information onto it.
Okay.
Patrick,
Yeah.
on your bailment draw, in the memo you say per attached U.S. bailment bill for settlement. On yours, that would be your bill from the health center. It's
on which one?
your bailment draw to pay off the health center.
Yeah.
And you say per U.S. bailment bill for settlement. That's your bill from the health center.
Yeah. I took that bill that I had, and I printed that other thing diagonally across it, and I used Microsoft Publishing so I could put it at an angle in there. So if you got Microsoft Publisher, you can type that in and then move it around to where it's at an angle, and then just print that out on that bill and then sign and date it, attach that with this other bailment draw, and submit it into the clerk of the court and say, here, this is for the bailee in hire to settle.
Okay.
See, that's what we had to do. We had, and in the court system there, okay, when you go and you send this into the clerk of the court, and basically when you look at that document that I had, I've got the exchange office. Well, in most cases, that exchange office is going to be the U.S. Attorney's office in that area. Okay, the justice exchange. Justice is just exchangement. That's what the Department of Justice is all about, just exchangement.
So that the CFO...
It's a division of the bank.
So the CFO you were talking about is in the U.S. Attorney's office.
Well, he should be right in there. Treasury, tied in with the Treasury. The Justice and the Treasury go hand in hand.
Okay. And if I were to make a major purchase with that, then it would be the window sticker or the some form of invoice for a house.
I would just forget the purchasing right now. Get out of the system. You're going to get assets in your back pocket in this process.
Okay.
Okay? Then you go over to the other side of the aisle, and you get into the de jure side with your book and page entry, and then you're operating over there, and that's when you get over there, you're going to get a debit card or something accessing to the Treasury. That's where you would get your proper documentation, is out of the federal Treasury side of the aisle. The de jure temple, okay?
All right.
The Moses temple, not the Jezebel temple.
Well, so far I and a number of other people have gotten a runaround trying to get that book and page number.
You've gone to the county?
Yes, I've called them. I didn't actually go in, but
you're going to probably have to go in. Okay.
Okay.
You've got to show that you're there and that you're the one that has the authority to have that book and page number.
Okay. I have to drive to Cleveland, but I can do that.
And basically, I walked into my place, and basically, they took me in the back room. I said, I'd like to see the book entry also. And basically said, okay, just give me a second. And basically, they went back, found the book, opened it up, covered up the other two entries that were on there above and below me, and then I was able to go in there and look at my entry.
Okay.
And I said, this entry's got some problems here because somebody made an entry after the initial entry, and when you make an entry after initial entry, you've got to initial and date that add-on.
Mm-hmm.
See, some of these people don't even know the real laws about entries and everything.
Right.
And then if you do an initial and date, you've got to have an initial date and signature document in the front of that document to show whose initials were signed to who. You print your name, sign your name, and then you put your initials.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
What were you referring to that about printing your name, signing your name, and then doing initials? What you were talking about?
If you go into any official document,
right,
and you make an add-on or a correction, a line out or anything,
okay,
you initial it and date it. Now, at the very front of that original document, you have to have an initial page that basically identifies whose initials are whose. Okay? So you put your initials down, you print your name, and then you sign the thing.
Okay.
We always had to have that document with all of our test procedures because in most cases we initialed and dated when we signed off a step in the procedure. But if you had made an entry as a rev or something and inserted a rev into a document, into the initial document, you already started the one, and now you made a modification and got it approved, a rev to it, you could come in and put those entries into that document, but you had to enter them, line out, or just handwrite it in, but then you always had to initial and date behind it. So anytime you ever put initial and date in there, you had to have an initial and date identification card at the very front. That's the legal or the lawful process of an official document. But in most cases, a lot of these people don't have any idea about what their real law requirements are.
So the birth certificate itself is just an initial document. We don't ever revise it or update it and tell you what your current height and weight and all that stuff is. Nobody ever, updates it.
What are you talking about, Steve? That certificate of live birth doesn't need to be updated, okay? That was an initial bailment.
Right.
Okay? You don't change the bailment. That's why that is classified as a receipt. But it can be added to in the account the funds that are under a bailment. It's like your checking and savings account. Just because you got a year older, you don't have to go in there and say that, I've got to change my whole account around because I'm a year older.
Oh, I wasn't saying that. I would just...
Well, no, that's what you were saying. You were saying that.
Yeah,
Think about what you said.
I wondered if there was some way they could, back out of it somehow.
No, they can't.
Okay. Well, anyhow,
You've got the receipt. You've got the receipt. They've got the bailment.
Right.
All you have to do is give the receipt back over to them, endorse it to them, and they've got to give you your bailment back. Go and talk to a bail bondsman and ask them how do they get their bail that they put into the court case back. They have to have a receipt. If they don't have a receipt, they're not going to get it back.
Yeah.
They have to surrender the receipt by doing an endorsement on the receipt saying that you're not going to come after them again with another receipt for the same item. That's why you put an endorsement on it. You're basically closing that down.
Right.
Stopping any further claim against it. That's why you endorse a check. You stop any further claims against that check. When you think about all this stuff, it's all logical. And then basically you'll think about things that basically you never really thought about, that it's just sort of automatic. It's in your mind, okay? It's just common sense. How would you make it work if you were going to be the one setting this whole thing up? And that's the way I look at a lot of this. If I was the one in charge, what would I be doing here? How would I run this thing? And see, we know that they've been out here committing all these crimes. Well, where is all this money at?
So if you
It's
did
hidden
this
in our accounts.
Yeah.
They turn around and then utilize those accounts by writing additional bonds. That's called money laundering. They hide the illegal money, and then they put us in a criminal capacity, and they only charge us as a criminal when we step out of line. When we go like Neil in there, and basically we're running around unplugged.
Yeah, like what I was doing.
Yes.
You can unplug yourself. You just got to do it right. You can't do it half-butt, like halfway.
Yeah.
Halfway on the saddle there.
You're still going to end up fighting. And see, that's what Neil kept doing. He kept going in there and was fighting. And then finally, at the end, he just said, okay, let Mr. Smith basically try and take me over. And see, at that point in time, then basically he got destroyed from within. Because basically anything that has a beginning has an end. And basically that Social Security account had a beginning and it's going to have an end. It's just, when do you want to make the end appear?
So, Patrick, on some of your prior documents, you said that you would endorse all that stuff in person, but now you're saying we should just endorse it and mail it in.
You're certifying it, okay?
Right. You're certifying it with your certified mail, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's under certification.
Right.
Certified mail is a certification, and then basically you're coming in and you're going to be the witness, the living, when you sign just your first and middle name and put your thumbprint. And then I would also, if you've got the Tribunal seal that I had out there, talked about that for years, 2 out of 3 sealing, it's a Tribunal ruling. When you have 2 out of 3, and basically, what are you supposed to have? You're supposed to have everybody is supposed to have a Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Scenario. Okay, that's pretty much all the way through the Bible. See, all these religious guys talk about it, they don't know what the shit they're talking about. It's all about banking.
So when you sign as the bailer and then the owner of the bailer, then that's 2 out of 3, then you just did a tribunal.
No. When you sign as the Father or the God, your first and middle name, and then you put your thumbprint on there, now that is the Son of the God.
Okay.
Son of man. One is the man, the other's the Son. Father and Son, okay? Right. Now you've got your 2. You signed as the Father, and now you sign with your thumbprint, the body is the Son.
Okay, that's the signature, yeah.
Because the signature had to have motion to it, and motion only comes from the operation of the brain. Anybody can take a thumbprint off of a dead corpse. The brain doesn't have to be operating to get a thumbprint. But to get a signature from a dead corpse, you're not going to get it because it needs to have the brain engaged into the process. So the Father is always the motion, okay, that came from the brain. The Father. Common sense. Think about it. It's logical. It's not illogical the way Mr. Spock would say. It's logical.
Yeah, the Father's the first middle.
Is the brain.
Right.
The one that puts things into motion.
But you said the seal is part of that in motion. The thumbprint.
The thumbprint is the body, and then basically when you do a seal, the embosser, you are now doing a sealing of those two together. You're embossing them. Okay, that is the sealing of the two. And I could take that into any court and basically shut them down on that one. They probably wouldn't understand what the shit I'm talking about, but basically I know what the hell I'm talking about, and I have the control over that court. The Supreme Court would know about this shit. Now, most of these local yokel, they're not really judges. They're just referees. Sitting there on the tennis court, high chair. Because that's what all they are right now. All these courts are arbitration courts based upon the 1925 Arbitration Act and then basically the 1938 court revamping in this country. That they made them all arbitration courts. There's very few real de jure courts out here. And then, see, you're the supreme in that damn court. We said that before, but we didn't know how we were the supreme player in that court. It's because we're the bailor in all these court actions. And all you have to do is, I am here for settlement. And you pass the bailment ball back over to the bailee and say, here, I authorize you to take the credits out of the bailment to settle that. You just aced that damn case and closed it down. There's only one ruling that the referee can make, and that is that you got an ace and you won the game.
Authorized to take you the credits out of the bailments. To settle the case. To settle the matter. I authorize you to take the credits out of the bailments to settle the matter.
Steve, just slow down, okay? I'm here to settle this matter. And basically, there's a bailment involved here because that is the all-capital named person, okay? That is the bailment. The charge is against the bailment. It's not against you, capital first letter, small letter, bailee or bailor, or the Steve as the living person, as the owner. It's not against you, but you have to do You have to allow the settlement. That's all you're doing. I'm here for settlement. And I authorize the bailee to take the credits out of the bailment. That's it. Now shut up.
Got it.
You just scored an ace. And since I won, I want some compensation too. I want my trophy. So I get the extra out of that bailment that was being used.
You want your trophy for pulling an ace.
Yeah, basically, that's like on a traffic ticket. You got an appearance bond. You get the excess. Like I said, the appearance bond's like $600. The traffic ticket's $425. All the charges, the court charges, and everybody else that wants to charge anything in there, $425. But the bond or the bailment was $600. So you say, okay, I'm here to settle, take the credits out of the bailment, and give me the rest. You're going to get $175 back. Probably in some cases, several days' wages for going in there for about a half hour.
Yeah, I want them to pay my impound fees too.
That is a bailment, and basically that's what you bring into the court. That's the bailor. You bailed that pickup into their jurisdiction.
Yeah, until I pull it out.
So the bailment, basically the bailee is going to have to pull the funds out of either the certificate of title to that vehicle, bailment, or out of the driver's license, bailment.
Right.
That's being held at the Department of Transportation. See, you've got all these sub-bailment accounts all over the place. But you can't access them. Only the bailee can access them. So when you start acting like the bailor and you identify them as the bailee, they can't deny that they're a bailee because they are. That's what BAR stands for. Bailee Arbitration Representative.
Bailee Arbitration Representative, right. Yeah,
It's not the British bullshit or any of that. It's bailee arbitration because you're in an arbitration, and this guy is a representative of the bailee who is holding the things. The Department of Transportation or Secretary of State or whoever. The Attorney General's office, even possibly. We don't know where the bailee's hidden, but these guys are a representative of that bailee. And you're the bailor, and the bailor is the supreme person in any bailment. Because at that point in time, you can close down all those bailments that you have as the bailor.
Including child support?
Including child support, because basically you've got a marriage certificate up there, and basically they've got that on state records, so they've got, that is a bailment. both you and your wife put funds, or whoever, the husband and the wife put funds into that support, that marriage certificate. And basically the marriage certificate was a state document that they were supposed to come in and make up the missing parent in the process. And you come in as the bailor, one of the two bailors in that contract. So if you're either on the male or the female side that's getting charged with the child support, you say, here, I'm the bailor, you take it out of my bailment, that marriage certificate. And you address them as they are the bailee authorized or arbitration representative. And that one would go to the Attorney General's office. Because I've talked to several people out there that basically have been working with the Attorney General's office on child support items. Any other questions?
Looks like not, Patrick.
I've got the answers. You guys got the questions. You want the answer? You better ask me.
Okay. Well, that's all the ones I've had right now.
What do you think about if all these counties and states are operating de facto and, all that, we're just going to be on the outside for a while until we get things back into the de jure area or more people join us. It's like we have to get something as soon as we do that. We have to have the safe passage, safe harbor, because we don't want to be getting any.
You will get that when you go into the federal court side, to the real temple, to the de jure temple. You will get your protections issued to you at that point in time.
Right, that's just following, right.
Yes.
One step at a time.
But basically, if they don't have any bailments out there to charge you, okay?
They're going to tell you how to get
They can't force you into the system. It's all voluntary in the Jezebel system.
Good reminder.
They can't make any money off of you then.
Yeah, so if your vehicle is not registered with the state any longer, when you pulled the bailment out away from them, they can't impound that truck. Now they're impounding private property. For what? What's the charge? They need a charge to do something. And if they do something illegal, they're going to get, and you go into court to say basically, hey, this guy took my, and basically there is no charge. They can't place this charge on me because they have to have a document that they can charge. That's why Neil was able to run around, because he had been unplugged. That basically there was still, Mr. Smith was out there trying to create new items in his name. Anybody else?
Yeah, I've got a question. So,
Okay.
We're at the federal district clerk's office, hypothetically speaking here, and the clerk asks, what do you want to do? We explain to them, and they want us to use one of their forms. such as a civil filing sheet. Now the question is, do we go with their forms, or do we explain to them this is a private matter?
This is all private.
And so then to incentivize them...
You're putting a bailment in. Do you see any bailment forms? Ask the clerk, where's your bailment forms? I'm putting a bailment in deposit with this court. In fact, your best bet would be go to a bail bondsman and talk to them about their process of putting bailments into a court. They normally just come in and say, here, this is for this action, this court case. They don't have to fill out any form, I don't think, but you can ask them. See, that's what you got to do. You've got to get out there and ask the damn questions. You've got the questions. Start asking them, because you're not going to get an answer unless you ask the question. That's why I keep asking you guys to ask me the questions. Because I can't just sit here and try and tell you all the answers, because I got more answers than you can shake a stick at. Probably more answers than Carter's got pills, as the old saying goes.
Well, then it's the Levitical priests that we need to pay 10% to incentivize them to work for us on the private side with these bailments.
They are on both sides of the fence, okay? And basically the 10% comes out of the conversion factor, okay? Taking lawful substance and converting it into the asset, what can be properly utilized in the system you're operating in, okay? So you need to have a conversion factor. And say, like right now, silver is somewhere around 17 to 1. One silver dollar equals 17 Federal Reserve dollars out here in the open market, whether it's asset-backed or debt-backed. We're not worried about that. But basically ours will be asset-backed when we're doing this in the justice system, okay? Now, you take off 1.7, 10%, and you give them the authorization to do that in there, in the temple, so now they know that they're going to get their payment. You've offered them payment, and they can't refuse that. Okay? So we don't have to do any court filing fees or anything like that, because we're not going into bankruptcy. We're not the bankrupt. The United States Corporation and all the states of, and all these Social Security Administration and all these Veterans Administration and all these hospitals, the utility companies, public utility companies, they're the bankrupts. Because they're using our bailments. We're the bailor. And basically the bailor, the real creditor, is the bailor. We have bailed them out.
What then keeps them doing what they're doing, as opposed to having one of their friends come in and liquidate an account, get $100 million, and then retire, than putting up with those that are at least trying to get their bailments liquidated?
Rephrase that again.
What incentivizes the federal court clerks to do what they do, as opposed to just retiring by having one of their friends come in, liquidate their accounts, and not even have to mess with putting up with those that are kind of poking around in the dark?
I'm not sure really what you're trying to get at. You're trying to say as soon as this clerk of the court finds out about this system that she's not going to be working there anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Because, and that's basically in a lot of cases, okay, it's a public service, okay? It was not supposed to be a lifetime commitment.
Like you need to get a hold of somebody to at least let them know that'll be.
I mean, basically, people were supposed to be out here and basically volunteering their time in return for the system. Even back in Moses' time, okay, the temple priest and everything, okay, initially when Aaron was there, they set it up, but later on, in Jesus' time, the de jure priest, and I think it was Mary's father-in-law or something like that. I forget which one it was. Not father-in-law, but basically somewhere in the family relative, cousin or something. He would go in and he would donate his time into the temple. He wasn't a full-time temple person, but he was qualified to be there in the temple. And you can be qualified to be the prosecutor and attorney. You can run for that office. But see, basically, they've got all these other items now. You've got to be authorized as a bailee representative. But, I mean, you can go down there and you don't have to get paid to be a deputy or anything. You can volunteer your service. Run for county commissioner. No pay. Hell, you'll probably get voted right in.
Well, that's the way it's supposed to be. If it was de jure, that would be like the ideal setup, yeah.
Right. And see, then that way, when you're in there and you're not under a salary or anything, who can control you? Nobody. And see, that's why the senators and the congressmen were supposed to be. They were not supposed to be salaried. They were not supposed to be controlled. Yeah, when you get control of your assets, basically, out here, and you put them to proper use, you can put them to use for the proper benefit of your fellow mankind. Give back what you've received.
I certainly will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. But everybody out here thinks that they've got to get paid for every damn thing they do.
What's interesting is that in school, a requirement for us to graduate was that we volunteered for a certain amount of hours. You know, it's almost like, where did that go? You know.
Well, they wanted to control you, and basically they were controlling you because basically they had to have you in that area for so long because basically they had to be able to have justification to write charges off against your bailment, your certificate of live birth account for the public education. That's what that was all about. It's all about money. See, I told you I'd give you the answer, basically, if you asked the question.
Yeah,
when you start thinking about these things logically, the answers will just come right out.
Right, like you and Chris said about a year ago about how they set up what they called charitable trust to manage our bailments. Like they're acting like they're doing you a charity. They're stealing your money. Money laundering, whatever. Putting money in and out, whatever.
Yeah, and basically they're operating in a foreign, outside the United States of America jurisdiction in this foreign monetary system, this Jezebel monetary system. That's outside the boundaries of the United States. In that definition in Ballantyne's dictionary about hire and retain. And that's why you, as the owner, and you, as the bailor, were made a criminal under the Enemy of the State Act. And then, since you're already marked as a criminal, basically you step out of line, and basically they've already got you. They're just bringing the charges up forward now. And then, since you're a criminal already, and see, you can go and find out where your master file is, if you can. And some of the people that have gone out and found out their master files, they're either a drug runner, bootlegger, or basically a drug dealer, or you name it. In several cases, they've got more than one or two items that are basically associated with that account.
That's amazing.
See, in this country, the government is the biggest drug runner out here. And they've got to hide all their illicit drug monies.
I hope it gets cleaned up. I guess we're going to have to learn how to do it. Nobody else is doing it.
Shouldn't have to learn too much more than what I just told you, okay?
Right. We got to behave with the knowledge, yeah.
You just don't go out there and flash it all around. Basically, you stay a little stealth in the process. And then when you get your other identifications and everything, then you'll be sitting in a different situation altogether. But you're not going to get them unless you ask for them when you get to that other side of the aisle. So all you people that basically refuse to speak up and ask any questions, you're not going to get shit. Because you'll never ask the question. You're scared of your own shadows, half of you. Okay, well.
Hey, I wish there would be more people talking because, I do my share of talking. I blow it and not think things through. I make stupid remarks too, but don't worry about it, folks. It's like that's how you learn by, like when you have a little emotion to it or if you feel inadequate, that's normal. It's just that's how you learn. Then the confidence comes after you know it.
But then again, I wouldn't be surprised that the other 11 calls could be like NSA robocallers, just recording the call. That's a possibility too.
Oh, they don't know how to operate the phone and press the star 6 and unmute themselves.
letting me know that I'm not an agent. But you know, the same guys who made you know, Matrix, they just, you know, they come out with this movie Jupiter's Ending, right? And so the part that stands out to me is the part where she's going to claim her inheritance. And they walk you through this. They're saying that she needs to have a tax identification number. She has to have a title. There has to be a transfer of title. And then she receives a receipt. Now, what was interesting was they of course it was they didn't say Internal Revenue Services, but they said revenue something, but you know it was IRS. The guy refused to give her the tax ID, and she couldn't get the title, you know, unless she had the tax ID. So he had to pay the revenue guy in order to get the tax ID. So it's like you said, there was a bailment, and you said that, you know, they would have to get paid. So that kind of stood out to me when you said that.
Yeah. Well, basically, just take a look at the Bourne Identity and let me see, what was it? Total Recall, the latest one there, and some of these other movies out here. These guys go in there and basically they got a safety deposit box that has 4 or 5 passports in it.
Yeah.
Well, they all have a last name on it. In a lot of cases, the first name is the same, but the last name's been changed. Well, you don't have a last name, so basically, you can have as many passports you want.
Right.
Say, I'm Patrick Jones today, but yesterday I was Patrick Smith.
Yeah, I read that in the state's constitution that, you know, they can't say anything about you changing your name. I mean, I just found that...
You can claim any last name because you ain't dead. Said, this may be my last name today. If I die today, this will be my last name. Now, tomorrow I want to have this name be my last name if I die today. They can't assign your last name to you because you ain't dead. See, that's common sense. That's why you go into court and say, well, who in the hell do you think I am?
So, Patrick, why did you go away from the injunction?
Why did I what?
Why did you go away from the injunction?
I still didn't hear quite what you said there.
Sorry, why did you go away from the injunction?
From the injunction? Okay.
Yeah,
because,
the injunction paperwork. Because I know you switched paperwork, and I mean, I totally see where you're going. I just wanted to know why you went away from the injunction.
Well, because basically when I was looking at it, and I went from the injunction into, what was that other one I was trying to do?
Like, I noticed we went into, like, I know we were going to letter of credit, you know, and I overstood that.
Yeah,
and,
the letter of
you know,
credit.
but I just thought you were like, no, I'm going away from it.
Yeah.
I just want to see. I just wanted to see what you're thinking was.
The letter of credit comes from the bailment, okay? And basically, the letter of credit is the authorization for these, like the bank and everybody else, to go and set up a sub-bailment against your master bailment. Okay? So that's what I was looking at from the wrong aspect, and that's like even when I went to the federal court side, or to the de jure court side, I was trying to utilize the certificate of live birth over there in that side of the aisle. You can't use that certificate of live birth because it's a bailment, okay, a commercial bailment. And we've got to clean it up, take it out of the commercial world, and then we have the assets. Now we can go and deposit the assets into the de jure treasury, the national treasury, So we've taken down the national debt and now deposited into the national treasury, or we put it into our back pocket. And then we come in under our royal letters patent, and see, this all is around letters patent. And I was looking at that we had one royal letters patent, and that was the certificate of live birth. It's not. That's a government letters patent. The royal letters patent is basically the entry into the book, the land record. And see, this goes all the way back to 1812, okay, when the British came over here, and in the War of 1812, they went around to all the county records,
right,
took copies of them, and took them into Washington, D.C., to make all the people then basically creditors or debtors to the national debt that was owed to the foreign England. Okay?
I seen that UCC one, they got on that too. Interesting.
And then also at the same time in 1812, the bankers came in, and they were going to try and put the people under their banking controls by passing the 13th Amendment to take the title of nobility away from the people.
Right.
Our right of sovereignty, being born of the land and having access to the national treasury, that's what they were trying to take us away, so that there was only one recourse we had, and that was to go to the bankers.
Right. And meanwhile,
that's what the whole 13th Amendment was about. And that's why the Supreme Court had to revoke the thing and take it off the books as though it was never there.
Right. Yeah, I heard about that too. And so, like, it really stood out, the bailment bailor situation, meaning, especially since the banks were bailed out. And we know that we, the people, were the ones that bailed them out.
Right.
So, you get to your bail, it's all about bailor, bailee. It's crazy. It all connects.
Yeah, and basically it's been that way ever since the very beginning. You always, a corporation has to have someone support them. And see, even in a lot of cases, in a corporation, the stockholders are the bailors of that company.
Right.
They have basically bailed out that company by giving them credits. But see, in most cases, they bought in, and now the companies spent that money, and really they need to put, and see, a corporation in this country has to zero its books at the end of the year. That's what they set up. Okay? The company can't carry a profit over. So they give the profit back to the shareholders, but the shareholders aren't putting the profit back into the company. So that's why they had to go out to the banks, because the company had to zero its books, and the shareholders aren't supporting them. And that's basically why they set this whole thing up this way, is because the people weren't supporting the corporations out here.
I heard you guys talk about going down to the clerk of courts to look at the books. Could you reference that again? I knew that it was in connection to the record, but which exact record are we looking for down there at the land records? Because I won't mind walking in myself.
Your birth entry.
Okay, gotcha.
Well, county recorder.
I've gone down to my county, and basically I'm not in the same county. I was born in county over, and I've gone over there and basically gotten several certificates of live birth from them in the past. So they knew me, and so I came in there and I said, I was wondering, can I see the actual entry in the book? And that I was getting 2 copies of the item, and so one of the clerks said, okay, yeah. So they went and covered up the other 2 entries on that page, and then showed me the book.
Trying to stay live on the Cumberland Newsline. It's Al Jazeera America.
Right. Yeah, because I'm not in the county where I was born, not anywhere close. So, in my situation, I would need to go to the county where I was born to take a look. Of course, I don't think I could really get them to send me some type of a copy or anything like that.
Well,
of that type of document.
The first thing you do is call them up and just ask them. Say, I just need to know my book and page number, okay?
Right.
Can you give that to me? Says, I've got my certificate of live birth. I know what my number is and everything, but I'd like to know what book and page number I'm entered on, okay?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that really doesn't have any bearing. I mean, nobody else can use that out here.
Right.
Okay? So it's not a detrimental knowledge.
True. It's just like deeds to a home. You know, you can get copies of it, but what are you going to do with it? Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. What good book and page number going to do to anybody else out there? They can't write a bond or anything else against book and page number.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. I got
They've got to have your signature authorization. And basically, so only some of these clerks, basically, they're not going to give out any information. But basically, if you approach them in the right way, I think you can get it.
Yeah, you got to play the game. That's what people don't realize. You play that game, these people will give you whatever you want. That's all they looking for. They regular people just like us. You got to approach them right. You know, some of them are tough, and you just take that with, you take it with a grain of salt and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I basically pissed off my local, when we get into an argument, basically I was trying to tell her to do her damn job, got her to crying and everything, local county reporter here. Basically, she called in the police and the sheriff on me, and so I had to talk with them outside, and then later on I apologized to her and everything, but yeah, now guess what? She's the state registrar.
Huh.
Whoa.
So, basically I could still fuck with her. Yeah, the ones in there right now, shit, I go in there and I joke with them all the time, and they're curious to want to know what I know, and they know that there's something wrong, okay? They know that there's more to this than what they've been told, but they haven't got the knowledge to put it all together, so I throw information to them constantly whenever I go in there. So they're open to it.
Right.
And then, like, I tried to talk to the VA rep that's there, and basically these guys don't even know that there's a military bounty out here. Well, what happened to the military bounty in this country? That's one of the oldest laws in the books, or second oldest law, is that the land has to give you support if you supported the land in defense of the land. Okay?
Right.
So that they took all of the public lands away from the people, this corporation did, and see, the public lands were normally always, they had to be in the name of a person. Okay? So, they are in the name of a person, and they're in the name of a person by way of the DD-214s or DD-4s or whatever. Whatever military document you have, that is your claim to the public lands. And see, that's your military bounty claim. Now, that does not roll over to the de jure side. You have to close it down on this commercial side. Because that DD-214 is a commercial document out here. And basically, then you pick up your 160 acres and your mule and your shotgun or whatever, and your plow and go off on your own. So it's not a continuously feeding system the way they have it set up right now under this commercial side. And those accounts are a hell of a lot more than 160 acres of value in the thing.
Yeah, I looked up.
I looked up
rule.
Several $1 billion, or could be approaching $1 billion, just in your military DD-214 account.
Yes, and I was pointed to Rule 144A, and reading that rule, it said a minimum of $100 million just per that rule. That could be one account. So I'm trying to get to it.
Yeah, well, you just come in and claim your bailment, and basically then you let the Justice Department go in and if there's any prosecuting or anything like that, but you basically, the one who turns first is the one who's going to be exempt. So you exempt yourself from any further charges out here when you basically turn this over to like the CID and the FBI and everything else to go out and find the real criminals. Say, here, I don't really want any of that criminal profits unless it's just. Okay? So you go out and you take and you investigate it, and basically if it's unjust, then you can prosecute the ones that perpetrated that injustice. But I didn't do the injustice as the bailor. And that's all going to go to the National Treasurer anyway, and basically then you know how to get over to the National Treasury. I've tried to lay that out. So we're there.
Yes, indeed. Smell it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question, Patrick.
Huh?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
But I am a citizen. I was wondering how this is different for me. Is it different only after I turn in my receipt?
Your what?
Well, this bailment receipt, I know I have to have the certificate of citizenship or naturalization and turn that in like you would with the certificate of live birth. And I was wondering after that, where is the process different for me?
Well, if you're naturalized, okay, you have your naturalization that you've completed your time, you would just put that claim into the federal court side. And see, if you've done your 7 years time, then basically you should have some access to the Treasury. But if you came from another foreign country, okay, you were born of that land, okay, so you still have a claim that basically could be transferred in the process from pulling that funds over to this Treasury. But basically, if you're going to become a citizen here, this country has to give you something in return. They have to give you the support. And see, that's where they would allow you into the Treasury at that point in time. So you got naturalized. You had to be honorable.
Yeah, I've just been having difficulty getting this naturalization certificate. I didn't want to pay the $600, so I put in a Freedom of Information Act request, and for my records and also my mother's records, but they didn't have the certificate of naturalization or certificate of citizenship there. I was wondering, how can I go about this?
You never had an initial one from when you got naturalized?
You know, I don't think they gave it to my parents, or possibly my parents lost it, so it's just a big hassle to pay $600, you know? I don't know what I can do about this.
I know someone who was in the same position.
You know what the number is and everything on it?
No, well, I have my certificate of birth from the foreign country, but I didn't get the certificate of Information Act.
Gilbert says he knows somebody.
Yeah,
Gilbert?
so I know some people who were in the same situation as you. What they did was they got the birth certificate from their home country and just basically use that, like Patrick just said. You use that and you can basically use that as your title to convert over to here. So don't think that your home country's birth certificate or certificate of live birth is nothing. No, it actually is something. Even if you went back to them and told them to authenticate it for you, that would give you more standing, in my opinion, as well. Because I know a couple people who have done that because they weren't naturalized here, but they did go back to their home country and get their authenticated birth certificate.
Okay, let's back up a second here, okay? If they're issuing a certificate of live birth, okay, over there in that foreign country, that foreign country, I'll bet you anything, is under the UCC system out here, the Universal Commercial Communism System. No shit. So they're all tied together.
Yeah, it's international. It's international.
Yeah, it's universal. In commerce, commercial commerce here. Okay? So they're all tied together from one country to another. So basically the funds can be moved around, and basically there's a bailment that's attached to that certificate of live birth also. That's the bailment you would be claiming, and then basically you could deposit that bailment into the National Treasury when you go to the federal court system, and now you'll have your $600 to get that naturalization paper and go and take that into the federal court side, and then you deposit your stuff, and basically, then basically you'll get access just like a regular citizen if you've done your 7 years here.
Okay, but I'm only 24 years old. I'm not 25 yet.
Well, that's not going to make that much difference. Okay, you can come out of this. You're supposed to be a totally free man. Okay, at the age of 25. Okay, so that you can go ahead and deposit. You would just have a limited amount, but you don't have to put everything in. I mean, basically, you start the process to get up to that point.
Okay, so just go to the bankruptcy court and certificate as my register.
Basically, they've got
bailment account number.
See, this is a universal commercial communist court system. Okay, so basically the bailment was out there. You might have to go to the bankruptcy court in D.C. to the clerk of the court there. But I would try this first one and see what the hell they say. The local district with your certificate of live birth and put a claim in for that bailment. But it's more than likely, since it's going to be on the international, you'd have to go to the one in D.C. and put it in. Maybe even to the, no, it shouldn't be to the Court of Claims. Might be to the International Court. They're in New York. That clerk of the court.
The International Court of Trade?
Yeah.
Yeah, under the UCC, what we're using is certificated securities anyway. So if it's universal, it applies all across the world.
Yeah, it should. Okay, because they're all bankrupt. All these, they've made all these countries basically bankrupts.
Yep, all corporate, signing that Hague Convention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And see, that's why a couple of guys talked about that last week or last Wednesday or last Sunday, or I forget which one, that a couple of guys went in and got their certificate of live birth apostilled. One guy got it from Morocco, and I forget what the other person got theirs from. But now they can take that certificate of live birth and see that country is in the listing of countries that are in this system, in this bankruptcy commercial system, judicial system of using the certificates of bailments out here, so they can, go from one country to the other. So that's why I said that basically that guy could go over to Morocco, and basically he's got that document there, and he'd be able to purchase things over in that country using that document because it's credits. It's bailment credits.
See, that's the thing, Patrick. You know, I got my birth certificate. They apostilled it at first. I told them to correct it. They did so, gave me a correct piece of paper, and only after I told them to do it for Taiwan. Now, the documents don't say Taiwan at all. It just says full faith and credit, United States of America. So, you know what I mean? I'm just looking at it like I don't have to just be in Taiwan. You know, it doesn't say anything about Taiwan.
Okay.
I just use a country outside of The Hague, and that's when they were forced to change what they did.
Oh, they didn't put a cover sheet on it and apostille it, ribbon together.
No, sir.
Or something in that regards, and have.
They did initially, but when I saw that mistake, that's because at first I told them to do it for the UK. Was this done at the state level or at the national level? This was done at the state level first, and then the national level. So at the state level, I told them to do it for the UK. That was my mistake. But when I called them back, when I knew that was a mistake, that it wasn't supposed to be apostilled, I called them back and said, hey, you were supposed to do this for Taiwan. They were like, oh, just send it back. And they changed it, you know. And then I sent it to the national level and did it for Taiwan. And John Kerry did the authentication, and it says full faith and credit. It does not say Taiwan at all. And so now, anytime I do my documents and I need to get authenticated, not apostilled, I just say Taiwan. And here in Washington State, they charge
you're going to close the thing down anyway, okay? So
right, of course,
it's all going to go away, okay?
Right, but I'm just saying, as far as the documentation now, just how they, how they would do it, Yeah.
So if you got that, basically, but you could put that copy in, but basically, I would just go with the certified copy from the birth certificate, put it in, and do your claim for bailment. And like I said, if you need to have confirmation of this, go talk to a bail bondsman and see what they do. They do it every day. Well, not quite every day. It all depends on how many clients they have.
Because I was looking at the birth certificate once I've done that process. Now I was looking at that as the letter of credit, the BC, because I got to use that to open up everything else. So I'm like, why wouldn't that be the letter of credit for me to be able to discharge any debt?
Well, no. In some cases, they do use that as an authorization. Okay, you're giving consent, and basically that you don't need any more letters of credit.
Right.
Okay. You give a letter of credit. The thing is, you give a letter of credit. You have to put the credits in.
Right.
Okay. It's just not an automatically filled up deal. See, when you go to the bank and you sign, you're giving a letter of credit to the bank because you're giving access to your Social Security number. That's your letter of credit. The Social Security account is basically saying that they're the letter of credit for them to open up this other sub bailment account. Now, you have to put the bailment funds into that account.
So with my birth certificate, because the birth certificate is a copy of the certificate of live birth, which is at the county, and that account is at the county, the CAFR account.
No, you didn't hear what I said. None of this is at the county. Okay, what is at the county in the land book is book and page number. That is basically the authorization for you to access the National Treasury.
Okay.
Now, at the state level, basically they took that document that basically they utilized to record you into the Book of Life, and they sent it up to the state registrar, who is working in the bankruptcy side of the situation, because they had to give you a compensation for taking all the gold and silver away from the people in the monetary system out here. Now you became a creditor to the bankruptcy, and then basically they gave you so much credits, the bankrupt did, that in a governmental letters patent, they assigned that patent number to that certificate of live birth, sent it back down the line to the county. The county then entered that land or that governmental letters patent into the county record. And that's what I'm saying. They made another entry later on after the initial entry was made there.
Right.
But that is different. That is not the real one. That doesn't give you access. The real one gives you access to the National Treasury. The other one only gave you, and that was an automatic royal letters patent by the initial book entry. The other one is a governmental letters patent that is sitting there, and that is basically commercial credits that you could have claimed, or your parents could have claimed right there from the get-go. If they would have known that it was a bailment, and then they could have taken that bailment and put it over in a safety deposit box and given it to you when you turn 21. But since they didn't claim it, the bankrupt corporation has continued to use it.
All right. And so,
and they're hoping you're going to die, and then none of your heirs are going to know what the hell to do, and then they're going to claim it all back anyway.
Yeah, because they, per their own rules, they said that it was outstanding. But, once I've made the claim, they used the word annexed. They said that the certificate was annexed. So that's moving it from one jurisdiction to another. So I'm like, I should be able to run with this.
No, you're going to run right to that bankruptcy court and terminate the bailment. You're going to give that their certificate back to them and say, here, I'm claiming my bailment that's on deposit with the damn commercial judicial banking system.
Gotcha.
Then you totally forget about that certificate of live birth. You don't need a certificate of live birth.
No, you don't. You really didn't need it in the first place.
You go and get a Bible and you put your vital documents into that Bible.
Yes, sir.
Because that's the real banking laws book. And it's in between the New Testament and the Old Testament is normally where the family records are at.
So, per my thinking, right? Okay, you put the name inside of the Bible. So, if you're standing on the law, on that as law, you're given gold when you're born, and
all your debt, you don't have any debts because your debts were paid for.
You've got to pay all your, if you basically buy something, you've got to pay for it, okay?
Right, of course. But
see,
because I don't have the gold,
how to pay for these things, that all we had to do was to go to our bailment that was already sitting there.
Right.
We weren't supposed to be slaves out here entirely, but we weren't supposed to sit around on our asses and do nothing also.
Right.
No, Patrick.
Like, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the information about the book and page entry, when we were going after those records last year when we were doing the homestead exemptions and the preemption reentries, so I wrote to the state registrar here, and they sent me back a letter, and there is some credence about another record, and they're saying that they're not familiar with the term land recorded birth records. However, our agency collects and maintains data related to vital events that occur in Hawaii. From that data, we provide certified copies of vital records data to persons who qualify by law to obtain those records. So copies of these birth records data made are available upon a request. So this is probably what you might be talking about. They might not be going with the term book and page number.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
See, Hawaii, when did Hawaii become a state?
1953.
Yeah. Okay. And see, basically, they basically have probably a different system of recording into the Book of Life. Okay, under all the way back from under Queen, whatever her name was.
Yeah, Lilihu Kalani. So, I think I talked to you about this. So I did all the research with some of the old churches out here and the christenings. And, they did have Book of Life entries, and I actually made copies of them at the library there with the curator. And then when they turned into the Republic, it was still under the ministers of the health and finance before statehood in 1953. That's when this Department of Health came into being, and all of these records.
Well, no, see, that's not the one that's in charge of these records, okay, of the land records.
Yeah.
They're under the commercial side.
Right.
The Bureau of Vital Statistics, Health and Vital Statistics. So there's another birthing recording that is done before that one comes about. See, there's two registrars in the process.
Okay.
One is normally about 3 or 4 days after, and that does not have that certificate of live birth registration number on it. It has no number. But in some cases, like California, it may have a file number or something like that. Computer file, I don't know how they've updated their system, but in most cases it should have been a book and page number, because pretty much anybody that's operated in the Christian era, it was always stated that you had to be recorded into the Book of Life.
Right.
Okay? So there has to be some record out there of you being recorded into the book. Okay? And basically that would be that's the de jure recording. Okay? Now the other one is the commercial recording. And that's the one that basically gave you, since they were bankrupt, they gave you credits, and they took the gold and silver away from the people to be used as lawful currency in the process, and gave you instead credits. They gave you so much credits or the gold and silver for your share of the gold and silver that they took away.
Okay. So right here it says that the agency collects and maintains the data related to vital events, and then we provide the certified copies of the vital records data to those persons. So there's a big...
Yeah, that's a bailment, okay? Yeah. Receipt. And see, you can take that bailment receipt and basically do a draw against your bailment that's held in the commercial world. But see, we never looked at it from that aspect that it was a bailment. We were trying to turn that into a money order and everything else. We were using the wrong terms.
Right. Okay.
We just had to go in to the clerk of the court. The clerk of the court, the judicial side, is the one who's holding the bailment. And see, we were trying to go to the Treasury and every place else, and we needed to go to the clerk of the court because it's a bailment in the commercial side, in the bankruptcy court.
Okay, yeah.
And then we would do a draw with that bailment receipt, and we'd only take partial out. It's a partial bailment withdrawal. Or we take out the whole thing. We want the full liquidation of this bailment. I think that's what I put on the document that I had. Full bailment.
Yeah, I'm right on that. You know, I think I should just go into this registrar and take a look at this record that they derived the certified copy out of.
You don't have counties over there or anything?
Everything has been unified and pulled into the state. There's really no county.
There's no local registrar?
No, there's only a state bureau of conveyances here. There's no county recorder's office. It's all been pulled into the state, all of the counties.
Where's your land records at?
The land records are all recorded in the bureau of conveyances at the state.
Which bureau?
Conveyances.
Bureau of Conveyances. So all of the titles, they're all recorded there, all the properties.
That's where I go, to that bureau. Not to the Bureau of Vital Statistics. I go to this other bureau.
Okay.
Where the land records are at. You're a land.
Right.
Okay? That's where you want to go, is to the land records, because, see, you're living land above land.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you.
Is he talking about Hawaii?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, each one of those states is the county.
No, there's 7 islands, and all of them have many different counties, but it's all been basically pulled into the state, and they all do all of the administration for the other counties, except for a very few handful of counties like Hilo and Honolulu. The main cities have their own county agencies. So yeah, thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
Hey, Patrick, isn't it kind of strange that you can have a county, but it's not in the county? It's just a drawer in the state? That's what he's saying.
Yeah, some of these places are a little different. I know Mass and basically some of those out there operate slightly different. Pennsylvania, because of the numbering system, they balked at the commercial system, but they basically kept a 7-digit number commercial numbering system there instead of going to the standardized 11-digit account number.
Yeah.
But there's for the most part, most of the states and everything they're all in a standardized format for this commercial system. Any other questions?
when we do this, when we ask for all of our bailments and we say we'll endorse like the certificate of title on the back, it's just all that stuff. We just write on a diagonal right over all that stuff they have on the back, right?
Or are you doing a launch?
Yeah. Okay. And do it on a
attach
diagonal.
it to it. Okay.
Right, I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead and call it a night then, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
Talk
just
to you
a pleasure
later.
listening.
Interesting call.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.